Hello and welcome to France 24. I'm Delano D'Souza and we are live from Paris. The headlines this hour. Donald Trump gets set to meet Kim Jong-un for a follow-up summit in Hanoi. The US president is under pressure to get the North Korean leader to take concrete steps and disarm. Muhammadu Buhari wins a second term in office. Nigeria's election commission announcing the results, which the opposition has so far refused to accept. And the House of Representatives passes a bill aimed at rejecting the emergency Donald Trump declared in order to get the funds for his border wall with Mexico. The resolution next goes to the Senate, where its chances are slimmer, but are slowly improving. Also coming up this hour, France's neighbors have been buying record amounts of power from the country. The freakishly good weather has helped tip the scales in recent days. Stay with us. We're live from Paris. The eyes of the world will be descending on Hanoi in a few hours as Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un meet face-to-face once again. The leaders, meeting 8 months after a summit in Singapore, broke the ice but produced few tangible results. The US president is hoping to secure concrete assurances from the North Korean leader. This as the denuclearization of the Korean peninsula has far from begun. For more, we can go across to our correspondent standing by, Charles Pellegrin, who is covering the summit for us. Charles, what's on the agenda for today? When will Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un be meeting, and who will be with them?
Well, Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un are scheduled to meet at around 6:30 p.m. Local time at the Metropole Hotel here in Hanoi. They'll have about a 30-minute handshake meeting, and then they'll follow that with what they call social dinner at the hotel starting at 7 p.m. Social dinner where the North Korean leader will be accompanied with the two aides. And it's quite interesting, actually, because the schedules here from the two sides really show the difference of culture between Washington and Pyongyang. The White House has been very open about its schedule for the day, explaining that Donald Trump would be meeting with the Vietnamese leaders throughout the day before meeting with Kim Jong-un later this evening, whereas the North Korean side and Pyongyang have been very secretive and not divulging any itinerary about the North Korean leader throughout the day. What we know for sure is that the real talks where the two sides will really get to the meat of the issue at hand, meaning the denuclearization of the Korean peninsula, will take place on Thursday.
Now, Charles, Donald Trump has been tweeting. I'm going to read you what he's tweeted in the past few hours. He said, Vietnam is thriving like few places on earth. North Korea would be the same, and very quickly if it would denuclearize. The potential is awesome, a great opportunity like almost none other in history for my friend Kim Jong-un. Donald Trump is really dangling the carrot before the horse, isn't he?
Absolutely. He knows what the incentives are on the North Korean side. The United States wants the denuclearization and the end of North Korea's nuclear and missiles program, and they know that North Korea wants to stop the sanctions that are hitting the country and really hurting its economy. This is one of the top priorities of the North Korean leader, Kim Jong-un, as he explained in his New Year's Day speech this year, that he really wants to develop North Korea's economy. And in a way, Vietnam is an example that North Korea could follow. At least this is what this is Trump's line of argument, explaining that they are a communist nation. They were hit by sanctions for 2 decades, and then they decided to open up and reform, starting in the 1980s with reforms known here as the Doi Moi reforms, inviting foreign investment and making Vietnam a sort of economic and manufacturing hub for the rest of the world.
Charles, thank you very much for the update. Charles Pellegrin reporting there for us from Hanoi. Now, as Charles was saying, choosing Vietnam as a location for the second summit was no ordinary choice. The country, which once fought the United States, has become a fast-growing economy but maintains elements of authoritarian rule, providing Kim Jong-un a glimmer of hope of what North Korea could be if he agrees to denuclearize.
a symbol of economic cooperation between two countries that used to be at war. A Ford car factory located 70 kilometers east of Hanoi, 600 workers, 14,000 cars built every year, about 50 a day, and not a single American employee in the past 4 years.
All the cars we make here are sold on the Vietnamese market. We haven't forgotten our history with the United States, but we mostly want to look towards the future and the present.
I'm proud to work for an American company right now.
Back in 1997, it was the first ever large U.S. factory in the country. Today, it represents the economic miracle that Donald Trump is promising North Korea if it gives up its nuclear program. Vietnam is an example to follow. A communist nation cut off from the world after 2 decades of international sanctions that decided to open up in 1986. Economic reforms known as Doi Moi. Today, Vietnam is an attractive destination for companies from around the world and an export-driven economy. This textile company makes clothes for the European and American markets. This employee has been at the company for 2 decades. She became a manager and witnessed the company's transition to modernity.
When I first started here, we didn't have modern machines like this one. We only had sewing machines with a single needle. There was no system to cut the thread automatically. We always had to do it by hand.
In order to have the better efficiency, our company already invest a lot of equipment. Yeah, firstly is the hanging system. The secondly is the machinery, modern machinery from the Germany, Italy, and the Germany, and Japan.
Kim Jong-un has said it many different times. His top priority for North Korea is the country's economic development. And just like Vietnam, it could benefit from lasting peace with the United States. In 20 years, trade between Vietnam and the United States has grown from $450 million to $52 billion.
Now, while Donald Trump will be basking in the spotlight in Vietnam, he'll be paying close attention to another show taking place at home. His former personal lawyer, who said he'd take a bullet for the U.S. president, will be telling his story before congressional lawmakers. Michael Cohen says he will be making a public case for why Americans should believe him over the U.S. president. Alison Sargent reports.
Michael, did the president tell you to commit a crime?
Emerging from a first day of questioning behind closed doors, Michael Cohen said he's looking forward to his hearing Wednesday before the House Oversight Committee, a testimony that will be broadcast live to the American public.
I really appreciate the opportunity that was given to me to clear the record and to tell the truth. And I look forward to tomorrow, to being able to, in my voice, to tell the American people my story. And I'm going to let the American people decide exactly who's telling the truth.
Cohen used to be one of Donald Trump's closest aides, but had a bitter falling out with the president last year when Cohen came under FBI investigation. In Tuesday's testimony, Cohen reportedly admitted that negotiations to build a Trump Tower in Moscow continued when Donald Trump became a serious presidential candidate. While Tuesday's hearing is believed to have focused on the Trump campaign's alleged collusion with Russia, Cohen will not be allowed to directly discuss the special counsel's investigation in the public hearing on Wednesday. He is expected to go into detail over hush money payments made to 2 women who allege they had affairs with the president. And in his opening statement, Cohen reportedly plans to call Trump a racist, a con man, and a cheat. Donald Trump has called his former employee a rat for cooperating with investigators, and Republicans have repeatedly questioned Cohen's credibility. In December, Cohen was convicted of bank fraud, tax evasion, campaign finance violations, and lying to an earlier Senate panel. He will begin serving a 3-year prison sentence in May.
Alison Sargent reporting there. Now, the House of Representatives passed a bill aimed at rejecting the emergency Donald Trump declared in order to get the funds for his border wall with Mexico. Democrats and some Republicans worry that declaring an emergency sets a dangerous precedent. The resolution next goes to the Senate, where its chances are slimmer but are slowly improving.
The joint resolution is passed without objection. The motion reconsidered is laid on the table.
It's a blow to President Trump's state of emergency. 245 members of Congress voted in favour of blocking it, while 182 supported the president. Democrats say that American democracy is at stake.
We would be delinquent in our duties as members of Congress if we did not overturn what the president is proposing. He is asking each and every one of us to turn our backs on the oath of office that we took to the Constitution of the United States.
President Trump wanted Congress to approve funding for a wall between the US and Mexico, a key election promise. What he got instead was months of deadlocked negotiations with Democrats and the longest ever government shutdown. So he went around Congress instead. The president says the border lets in drugs and criminals, and that makes securing it a national emergency. It means the president can now divert military funds for the war. But Democrats argue that Trump has manufactured the emergency at the border, and taking on budgetary powers is unconstitutional. Only 13 Republicans sided with the Democrats.
This president is taking decisive action to finally address the crisis using the authority provided to him by the Congress. I support the president's efforts. I believe he is well within the law in making this declaration.
Next stop is a vote in the Republican-controlled Senate in the next 2 weeks. The White House has already said that Trump will use his presidential veto to push ahead regardless. It seems that overriding that veto is already off the table. That would need 2/3 of the vote in both chambers.
Nigeria's president has won a second term in office, the Electoral Commission announcing the official results early this morning. According to the official results, Muhammadu Buhari took home 56% of the vote versus 41%, which went to his rival. Now, he now faces the daunting task of reviving the economy in the oil-rich nation while ridding Nigeria of Boko Haram. Let's take a listen to what the Electoral Commission had to say.
Muhammadu Buhari of the All Progressive Congress, having satisfied the requirements of the law and scored the highest number of votes, is hereby declared winner and is returned elected.
For more on this story, we can go across to our correspondent Chika Dua in Lagos. Good morning, Chika. What are Buhari's main challenges as he gets set to begin this second term in office?
Well, President Buhari actually faces 4 major challenges. That is insecurity, trying to reboost the economy, fighting corruption, and also trying to win the trust of Nigerians. Firstly, with the economy, we know that Nigeria is still trying to come back after a very difficult recession. Buhari has to try to continue his efforts to steer Nigeria away from its heavy reliance on oil. The government depends on oil production for more than 80% of its revenue, so he has to try to diversify that. He's been trying to do that with trying to target agriculture. Secondly, the fight against corruption by Buhari is largely seen as biased, as one-sided. He's seen as actually looking over the corruption charges of people who are in his party, his own supporters. So he has to try to show that his fight against corruption is actually supposed to reach everyone, that there are no so-called sacred cows. Anyone found guilty of corruption, he says he will try to prosecute them for the sake of the Nigerian people. Of course, insecurity is still there. Boko Haram is still very much active, especially now that it has a strong alliance with the Islamic State in Syria and the Levant. And also, he has to try to reunite Nigerians. This campaign season was very intense. Both parties were very harsh, exchanging very bitter words towards each other. So he has to try to unite a divided country.
Okay, so he has his work cut out for him, but the opposition, on the other hand, has not conceded defeat. Why do they reject this outcome?
Well, just this morning before the announcement actually came out, PDP made one last dire plea to say, let's hold announcing the winner of this election. It's alleging that the state actually worked in the favor of APC, the ruling party, to, for example, intimidate voters. It's also alleging that that the results in 4 states should be completely canceled. It remains to be seen whether or not PDP will actually take its claims up in the court of law, but it certainly has a mandate and the right to do so.
Chika, thank you very much for the update. Chika Dua reporting there from Lagos for us. In other news, at least 3 people have been killed and 60 feared buried after an illegal gold mine collapse in the Indonesian province of North Sulawesi. Rescuers have used spades and ropes to search for survivors. So far, 15 people have been rescued. The government in Indonesia has banned small-scale gold mining, although regional authorities allow the practice to continue in more remote areas. Due to poor regulation, such mines are prone to accidents. Now, the most senior Catholic clergy member ever convicted for child sex crimes could face a maximum of 50 years behind bars. Cardinal George Pell has been taken into custody this Wednesday. His lawyers had planned to request a continuation of bail but dropped their application. Pell is due to be sentenced at a hearing on the 13th of March. Time to get your reminder of our top stories here on Live from Paris. Donald Trump gets set to meet Kim Jong-un for a follow-up summit in Hanoi. The U.S. president is under pressure to get the North Korean leader to take concrete steps and disarm. Muhammadu Buhari wins a second term in office. Nigeria's election commission announcing the results, which the opposition has so far refused to accept. And the U.S. House of Representatives passes a bill aimed at rejecting the emergency Donald Trump declared in order to get the funds for his border wall with Mexico. The resolution next goes to the Senate, where its chances are slimmer but are slowly improving.